Hello, and welcome to For the Record, a public forum on arts, culture, and heritage policy for the city of Harrisburg. I'm Linwood Sloan. I'm joined by Ann Azaldet. We are co-chairs of the incoming administration's transition team for arts, culture, heritage, and tourism policy, and we've been involved for the last 8 weeks in a dynamic public-private process to have civic dialogue concerning the estate of our cultural community. We have been charged in a time of few resources. We refer to ourselves as a vision-rich and resource-poor community. And so we're here tonight to talk amongst our colleagues and our friends, social architects and change agents, about a blueprint for cultural development. I'd like to start with the economic capacity of our community as a cultural industry, and I'd like to ask Ted if he'll come to the platform. And Ted, we need a footprint, a blueprint, a thumbprint, a shadow of what our economic capacity is. Will you share that with us?
Sure, Linwood. I think those of us who are engaged in the daily business of managing arts, cultural, and heritage groups are focused mostly on getting bodies into our doors and into our galleries, into our performance halls, into those seats, securing grants, securing philanthropic support, and individual contributions, and even corporate sponsorships. We're operating in a world that we know mostly as not-for-profit, and we're usually happy if we just manage to cobble together enough revenue to meet our missions. But it's helpful, and I think even inspiring, for us to quantify the traffic that we also create for the businesses that surround our organizations, specifically those businesses that function in the city of Harrisburg. We deliver our patrons to the doors of restaurants, brew pubs, hotels, and parking garages all around the city. And over the past few weeks, we've sought to collect those numbers and provide some data. In 2012, Americans for the Arts, a nonprofit group, commissioned a project called the Arts and Economic Prosperity. They did that to study the economic impact of arts and cultural organizations in individual communities. And this study actually determined that such organizations, specifically those in the greater Harrisburg area, generated $54.4 million in revenue. Of that, more than $23 million came from audiences that were spending money outside the performance venues, museums, and galleries in the area. That data will be included in the final report that will be offered to the new administration, but I'd like to offer also a snapshot of just two organizations that you're familiar with. The first is my own, the Harrisburg Symphony Orchestra. During last year's performance season, the Harrisburg Symphony brought 34,262 people downtown to attend concerts at the Forum. Last year also, the Whitaker Center attracted more than 160,000 visitors to its arts and science venues. Those are some pretty serious numbers. And those are just two examples that represent just a fraction of the dozens of organizations and other groups that are attracting individuals and families from near and far. These visitors patronize area restaurants, gas stations, parking garages, and hotels in our city. And through the work of the various roundtables that were convened by Mayor-elect's transition team, we believe that Mayor Pappenfuss, his administration, and the citizens of this city will see that the arts and cultural organizations of Harrisburg do more than just make our city a nice place to live. But these organizations also drive a significant amount of business and sustain a large number of jobs. The numbers are impressive, and the future is bright.
Thank you very much, Ted. That's a very important beginning. Mira Johnson, I'd like to say that Ted's statement helps us look inward at the impact of the arts on Harrisburg. Now, will you take us outward? Let's look at ourselves in relationship to a constellation of cultural makers across America.
Thank you, Linwood. Hi, everyone. It's good to see everyone again. So I've been looking at two wonderful opportunities to gain visibility for Harrisburg. Harrisburg, the city, and then also the arts and culture programming that's going on here. And so I'll start with the NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts Mayor's Institute for City Design. As you might recall from my previous explanations, the Mayor's Institute is a working group of mayors from across the country who come together annually, different regional conferences on the national and on the regional level. They collaborate with architects, city planners, and arts and culture advisors to prepare mayors to be the chief urban designers for the cities that they hail from. So not only is the Mayor's Institute a resource for mayors and their cities, but it also serves to educate the nation's top city designers in the issues that cities are confronting right now. And I think Harrisburg is one of those cities that is confronting issues that a number of other cities across the country are also dealing with. So it's a prime space to test techniques. Harrisburg obviously should be involved in this conversation, and so we've been hoping to get the mayor-elect to participate in an upcoming Mayor's Institute, which will be in June of 2014 in Louisville, Kentucky. So we've been in conversation about that, and I think we're moving forward. And so another opportunity for visibility that we've been looking at is the creation of an arts council for the city. And so the three primary functions of a city arts council would be, first, to provide the city's arts and culture organizations with a unified front so that they could apply for regional and state and national grants together in a collaborative coalition, so that they can participate in regional initiatives, similar, and make visible one another, all the organizations in the city who are doing great things, because there are a lot of us, and if we work together, we can accomplish change much more quickly and pool those resources to accomplish change. So second, a City Arts Council would also provide a lens for regional and national organizations to see what's happening in Harrisburg. So in the first point, we're able to see each other, we're able to see what's out there and take advantage of it. In the second point, people can see Harrisburg. If we have one organization, one council to step forward and say, this is what's going on in Harrisburg. Come to us if you have questions about Harrisburg arts and culture. Useful for becoming involved in major cultural surveys. We just heard about the AFTA cultural survey, placemaking grants, and really crucial in creating Harrisburg as an arts and cultural tourism destination. And then finally, a City Arts Council would provide a central resource to artists, organizations, and the public who are interested in engaging in the arts and culture. So this would be a one-stop shop for citizens who are interested in knowing maybe how to create a neighborhood festival. It would be a place for artists to go if they say were interested in doing murals and they wanted to connect with a community who wanted murals in their community, and a place for organizations to come and collaborate or learn about gain some consultant resources to figure out how do we address this issue that our organization is confronting. So the presence of an arts and culture organization would really move Harrisburg forward, I think, in all of those areas.
Thank you very much. And
Yes.
Mira mentions placemaking. Will you guide us through some dialogues on placemaking?
I certainly will. Thank you. We all know we have a beautiful city. We know we have that. And our task now is to continue creating that lovely environment so that people wish to come here, wish to relocate here, or visit here. And we do that by beautifying our infrastructure in several ways. So I'm going to ask Melissa Snyder to come up and talk about the homesteading initiative that is being discussed here in the city.
Thank you, Ann. Unfortunately, I wasn't part of this actual committee, but I do have the pleasure of presenting some information that the committee did discover for Mr. Dave Butcher of WCI Partners. Homesteading and other residency programs have been around and utilized by other cities for decades. And they've shown that the powerful return on investment that artist residency incentive programs have on the economic development for our communities. The first one of those is called the Artist Homesteading Program, is what they're proposing. Both the city and the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority, and we've all seen them, no matter what city you drive down or walk down in Harrisburg, have a large repository of vacant and abandoned buildings and properties. Most of them have been owned by the city or the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority for decades. The one problem is, though, that buying these properties is okay, but the cost to renovate them and the cost to keep them out outweighs the cost of actually purchasing the property. So in order to facilitate the sale of some of these properties, how about selling those properties to artists for $1? And in exchange for a residency commitment from those artists tied to the deed as an encumbrance. In addition, the city could be able to partner with private and other non-private companies to give supplemental financing advice and building advice to other partners. They would also benefit by transferring the properties to the tax rolls for the city and from the economic activity that would be produced by those artists who are here, those artists who have to buy the paint, the artist who has to buy the construction materials. The other program is the Artist in Residency Program, which Harrisburg does not have. It would complement the homesteading program by providing discounted or even free rental housing along with studio space on the same property or maybe an adjacent property for a defined period of time, like say 12 to 18 months, in exchange for work by the artists for community art projects, sculptures, murals, outdoor paintings, indoor public facilities, and other areas. The housing would be provided by private property owners who would also do all of the renovations. Excuse me. And as Dave Butcher's representative here this evening, I am honored to announce that Dave emailed me to say that WCIA Partners has agreed to be the first participating property owner for the Artist in Residency Program as a demonstration project. The final details are pending, but 2 artists are already in discussion to participate. The artists would be engaged in community art projects in the neighborhoods throughout the city, directed by Jump Street in exchange for free rent for 12 months at properties owned by WCI.
That's excellent. Wonderful, wonderful.
What great news. Which segues right into Nancy Mendes, who's going to talk about these projects in public art that our resident artists will be producing.
That is really great news. Being an artist, we're always looking for work, opportunities to do our work. And my section is about public art. And I love the experience of walking down a street and being surprised by something like the clothespin in Philadelphia. And in Chicago, the metal cutouts of people. It looks like a horde of people walking by the river. And we could do that here. We can do that in Harrisburg. We have a good start at the riverfront with all the sculptures there, some of them done by well-known artists, Frederick Frank for an example, and many done by local artists. They're controversial at times, but discussion is really important, that engagement. And nothing can lift you out of whatever is going on, whatever is troubling you, than stumbling upon a piece of art that, like it or not, it takes you out of whatever you were in before. And I've been using this quote by Picasso. The purpose of art is washing the dust of daily life off our souls. I think that's true. That's absolutely true. So, Philadelphia is internationally known for the mural projects that they've done. Also, Pittsburgh is known throughout the nation. Allentown and York have had mural projects going on. And Harrisburg is Harrisburg is ready for this. First, I want to go back to the sculpture at the riverfront. I think that it would be a great thing to expand that to different spots in the city. Again, to be discovered by people. And through Mira's marketing and through the artists that will come in through homesteading and that kind of thing, we can all work together to make this happen to raise the level of community spirit fine feelings and feeling like this is just a great place to be. As far as murals go, we already have some murals on City Island. There's one about Native American life and one about Negro baseball. And we can continue that and spread it out throughout the city. As I said, Harrisburg has a lot of blank walls for us to work on. And I think that would be a great thing to do. We also have a mural by a now internationally famous artist, Tony Truesdale, on Maclay Street. And that needs to be restored. And I think that's something that we really need to look into. Let's keep the treasures that we have. Harrisburg does have a lot of assets, and we need to keep those. We can also partner with other organizations, like, for instance, I've spoken with Lorraine Buckley, the director of the Susquehanna Art Museum, about this idea of having murals, and she has already gotten us 2 places. One would be the wall that is directly north of the location where the new Susquehanna Art Museum is going to open at the beginning of 2015. She spoke with the owner, who actually comes from a long family list of artists, and he's given permission to put a mural on that wall. She also spoke to her neighbor on the other side of Calder Street. There's a grocery store. He has a nice bare wall. He wants a mural there. So that's really a great start for a concept, and I'm really excited about it. So there's a partner, Susquehanna Art Museum. And another partner that we could work with is the Art Association of Harrisburg, which has a well-established structure of artist members. And they have a long experience of working with artists to match artists with the right jobs. And I'm thinking we could work with them, rather than reinventing the wheel, we could work with them to establish a council that will select artists, maybe artists who are in residence. They could work with community people to work on concepts. Maybe we could put one in a community that will show people the essence of that community, the spirit of that community. Or we could bring in a professional artist who may become famous. In Philadelphia, there's a Keith Haring mural on an old building that was deteriorating, and they're really working hard to fix that up. We could learn about ways to keep that from happening, keep buildings from deteriorating, or doing them on different formats so that they could be taken down if something happens to the building. So, again, and this will uplift the spirit of the community and bring people, besides the beautiful river, the 7 bridges, the art at Riverfront Park, the symphony, the open stage and theater Harrisburg and Whitaker Center, and so many of the things that we already have going for us. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. I'm sure I did, but anyway. Then there's the art, where you wander down the street. Another thing that I think is important is, this being the capital city, we need to have a history museum, a Harrisburg History Museum. And that's a real easy thing to achieve, because I worked on a project in 2010, and the design is already done. And in conjunction with the Harrisburg Archives, we already have the panels designed. There are artifacts there. We just need a place.
That's a good place, Anne, for us to call your next speaker up about history and heritage.
Well, are we there yet? I think we're at a responder
Anne.
to Mr. Wendell Murray. So, Wendell, you do have a history, too, with public art and murals. Would you like to respond to Nancy's
Sure.
comments?
Let's see. It's very good. I'm very happy to hear about the potential for mural expansion in the city of Harrisburg. Our organization has been a very vocal proponent of murals in the city for quite a few years. We've got about 45 murals around the city, so it's again, we have been working at that, and we are an open resource for those still looking as far as murals are concerned. You have a resource here in the city. Public art, I think that the discussion has to definitely include, as we look and talk about various ideas as far as artists in residence and so forth and so on, we have to look at the community. That's a really, really precarious situation, because we have a community in Harrisburg that is realistically divided as far as arts is concerned. It's divided between the quote-unquote professional arts base and the community art. Community arts tend not to get the recognition, but we tend to be out working in the community with the residents. We are a very strong proponent of empowering youth to be a part of their community. So any steps towards doing something like this in the community, we feel that in order to build a stronger community, you cannot just bring somebody in and have them do a project. That those projects need to involve and engage our youth so that they are able to form attachments to the community. It is imperative that we involve our youth in what we do, in our planning process and implementation process. We can't just ignore them, because that's our future. We can do all of, I could run off a list of 10, 15 different mural artists that are right here in Pennsylvania, but not one of those mural artists emanates from Harrisburg. So that's a problem for me. That's a problem, because that kind of foundation we're not building. That's a foundation that happens when you engage and involve young people in what's going on in the town that you want them to be attached to. We have to empower, we have to give recognition. We had a project up and Nancy was speaking of the various murals in the city, but we have 6 murals that have been put up into city, the park, Reservoir. Thank you. It just went, but up in Reservoir Park, that was done as collaboration between professional artists and young people. But typically when I hear various people list different projects that are going on in the city of Harrisburg, that's very often overlooked. Okay, so for me, it's not a personal thing, but that overlooking, you have to realize that you are devaluing, not giving value to young people and their contributions to this community. So I think I just want to make that point, that that's a very, very important part of the process that cannot be overlooked if we are to have a successful, healthy, and continuing to grow community.
Well, we're going to be talking about education fairly soon, Wendell, so arts education especially. So I'm going to echo your sentiments exactly. Thank you. Now, another segue to this placemaking initiative deals with landmarks and monuments and a really incredible collection of Harrisburg history called the Archives. And Jeb Stuart is the steward of that information. So, Jeb, would you like to talk a little bit about the landmarks, monuments, and archives that we have in our city?
Thank you, Ann. And of course, Harrisburg is a beautiful city and has much to offer in terms of historic districts, National Register districts, landmarks that are individually listed on the National Register, citywide, that are important to the city, monuments that are within the park system that commemorate many individuals and many events that are important, not just to the community, but to the state and beyond. And there are several points that we'd like to focus on, one being that in 2006, the National Trust for Historic Preservation did a tourism study for the city of Harrisburg. That study needs to be re-examined, looked at thoroughly, and whatever is pertinent to what we want to do in the future should be hopefully executed. The city right now has an extensive outdoor history system, which are outdoor exhibits with text and photography that are adjacent to landmarks and neighborhoods of note citywide. The city has a replacement system for those panels that could be reinstalled. Many of them, unfortunately, have faded over the years, and that's something that could be done very easily and very soon and very quickly. In addition to that, the City Beautiful 2.0 initiative is evolving. And one of the goals of that is to list the city's park system in the National Register of Historic Places. If that occurs, that will be very important to the city from the standpoint of prestige, tourism development, branding of the park system because of its significance through the work of in the early 20th century of Warren Manning, who was a well-known landscape architect, and other individuals that put Harrisburg on the map at that time as being a leader in the City Beautiful movement. That needs to be fostered again. That spirit needs to be reinvigorated, and a National Register listing would do many things in addition to leveraging funding for the restoration of monuments and other improvements to the park system. There was work done a number of years ago by the former Harrisburg Public Arts Advisory Board to document all the monuments in Harrisburg from 1785 essentially to the present. There is a manuscript, there's text that needs to be published and refined. The information is there. It's just a matter of taking it to the next step, which would be very important to the city. The Harrisburg City Archives, that's another piece. The City Archives does exist. It needs to be re-examined. It needs to be opened. Unfortunately, it's been closed for the last several years. It's a tremendous resource. There are a number. It's the city's legacy, which is contained within the archives in terms of documents, periodicals, postcards, photography, maps, atlases, dockets, and other information that really date back to the time of the city's founding and continue up to the present time. Those need to be, the archives need to be made accessible to the public. Artifacts from the archives could be mined, if you will, so to speak, and put out for display at exhibits throughout the city and the metropolitan area, for that matter, are key locations to further promote the value, benefit, landmarks, and monuments and other aspects of the city. In addition to that, the city's beauty should be captured much more so photographically. We did at one point have a number of the city's tourism brochures on the city's website. The photography was very good. The photos popped up. There was a tremendous amount of information. That could be easily reestablished and hopefully put back on the city's website with good photography. What we want to show is the beauty of the city worldwide as a place, not just as a tourism destination, but as a place where people want to live, where people want to stay, where businesses want to come and understand the significance and the beauty and the value of this city. So there are a couple of the points that hopefully the new administration will pursue.
Very good. And I think that Jeb mentioned City Beautiful. I think it's very interesting for us to examine that phenomenon that placed our city in the national spotlight in 1900. And one of the chief components of that movement were the parks, the so-called Emerald Necklace. So, Brenda, would you like to address that issue?
Thank you so much. The city of Harrisburg's parks, our recreational opportunities, and our green spaces are truly a valuable asset, both for the residents and for visitors throughout the region and the nation. Our parks are a stage for festivals and fundraising and events, and they attract, again, these many people to them. But most importantly, our parks improve our quality of life. They offer the healthy outdoor recreation. They offer green spaces and a chance to connect with nature. They offer a platform for the communities to gather and families to have reunions and make memories. But we need also to understand the history of our park system. This world-class park system was the result of a City Beautiful revitalization effort in 1900, and it left us with City Island, with the Riverfront Park, the Greenbelt, Reservoir Park, and a rich diversity of neighborhood parks and playgrounds. So the city has amazing bones. It has an amazing park system. It also has a lot of challenges to this system. The infrastructure of our parks and playgrounds is neglected and degraded. We have no Parks and Recreation Department, no one to program our parks and green spaces. The city abolished its Friends group to support our parks. And today, there are people that treasure those parks, that want to be in them, but they have no real way to offer their help or to speak out. So what do we need to do? Well, I think we need to make revitalizing this nationally significant park system a very high priority. The city should initiate a strategy to tackle both the capital projects and rehabilitating the system, but also to set up a Friends group or a Parks Conservancy who can offer, again, programming and other kinds of support to regrow the system. And the good news is that there's actually a lot of resources to do that. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, has significant funding. There's also funding for green infrastructure. There's funding through other sources for the physicality of the parks. And we have lots of volunteer groups out there. The Capillary Greenbelt, Harrisburg Young Professionals, many corporations. They're looking for ways to give back. So we need to take the model that Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and New York City have adopted, setting up a Friends group and a conservancy to be a partner with the city. And I think we can put all those pieces back together again and be City Beautiful. Thank you.
Very stimulating, very stimulating. Thank you, Brenda.
I will be